Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of A Handful of Hope. I am so happy and grateful to have Jennifer White with us here today, who is a psychological therapist and relationship coach based in the UK. She's the founder and creator of Strong Heart Awakening and the Strong Heart Awakening Academy, a school of high caliber relationships, standards, and boundaries. Through her past experience working with people healing from substance misuse and codependency, she gained substantial insight into how setting clear boundaries can create a transformational healing process that impacts the way others treat us and positively affect our relationships and our lives. Since founding the Strong Heart Awakening Academy, Jennifer has helped hundreds of people worldwide, from working class to CEOs and multimillionaires, successfully attract and create high caliber relationships personally and professionally in the most classy and sassy way. Jenny, welcome, and thank you so very much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm really, really honored. I love your work. You know that. I absolutely adore your work. And I'm so honored to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a treat to be here with you. And I am excited that we get to have so much time together this week.
Yeah, we do, isn't it? Sometimes it gets super busy. And I mean, even though we are recording it during times that are more difficult than ever, isn't it? Where we think like, gosh, is there enough work, or it's more work than ever? I feel like it's so important that we show up as coaches and influencers, or however you want to call yourself, to really help in times like
Yes.
these. It's so needed, isn't it? It's absolutely needed.
How
Busy.
has your business evolved, Jenny, this last year with COVID?
Gosh, I really niche down on relationships. I've done a lot about boundaries and standards before. And what I really found is that a lot of people struggle with relationships because all of a sudden everything has been put on hold. And we all of a sudden have to spend a lot of time with people we thought we know. And all of a sudden, right, we might not know them as well, or we are now forced to spend more time with them. And it's really has been super, super interesting and super busy. I think I never have done so much work in my life. It's really, unbelievable. And lots of people struggle. And what I think it's also sitting with our own mindset, sitting with
Mm,
our own thoughts, sitting with our own self-worth. So how do we identify who we are when everything is put on hold, when we can't go to work, when there's a lockdown? So all of a sudden, all these labels, all these identifications have been reduced, and some people really struggle with that. It has been interesting in a good way.
hmm. Do you find that, I guess maybe I'll rescind that and reword this a different way. How have you experienced in your practice the struggles with that loss of identity playing out for people, and especially in the relationships? Because I imagine that so many relationships, right? The romantic Disney side is that you're in love and you love this person, they're your best friend and all that blah 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 stuff,
Mm,
right?
mm,
The truth is that most of us were in a relationship with a person predicated on already preset boundaries. I relate to you between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. And we have our habits, routines built on around that, as well as around the weekends. We have stuff we do with kids, travel, and vacations. But rarely is that relationship built on 24/7 cohabitation, in your face, stress of the world, all these other things. And
mm,
the relationship identity, I imagine, has been altered so dramatically too, because people
mm,
have lost that in many ways, that primary, or displaced that primary role of who I am outside of the relationship vocationally, where I think so many of us derive meaning from. And I'm curious, how has that been playing out in the folks you've been talking with relationships? Do you find that people are struggling more with the relationship dynamics evolving with COVID, or because there's a there's this identity loss that people are struggling with, and now they're struggling to figure out who they are within the relationship because of the absence of identity? Is it all the above? Is it none of the above?
I think it's a mixture of all of it. If you think about that, all of a sudden, maybe if you're out of the house from 9 to 5 and then you come back, you have like a limited amount of time to spend with each other. And often I find people avoid actually talking about what they want out of a relationship. So we have actually a lot of distractions going on in this world. To just live in a relationship, we might not be very satisfied, but we put it on the back burner for a bit, we deal with it later. And now all of a sudden, last year, bang, lockdown. Now we are talking. Now we are talking about everything that we just swept under the carpet, right? Everything that we haven't mentioned. And these tiny little niggles that come up, that bubble to the surface. So people are actually not used to conflict. We have that, I think, fairy tale, you said Disney World kind of approach where we think everything has to be romantic, everything has to be perfect, everything has to be, good, because the person I have to be with has to be the one, and the one I have no problems with. So, but we grow through difficulties in a relationship, right? So if I'm not in my peak or something and I'm a little bit teasy, I should be really honest about that with my partner instead of portraying saying everything is fine. So maybe I'm not at my peak performance or the best partner in the world. All of a sudden, all these things bubble up and say, you don't do this. And then, we draw from past experience we didn't like, and we use that against our partner. That's the main problem. People are not talking. They're not setting standards. They don't say, look, this is what I want in a relationship. It's almost like it's something we run next to our lives. It's something that will sort itself out. And I think it's actually a blessing that this happened last year, because that is a new identification of a deeper form of relationship. And we have quite a narcissistic approach sometimes in regards to relationships. It's like, you have to make me happy. Make me happy. You're not making me happy because you're not playing by my rules. So what are the rules actually? So it's interesting, has been interesting.
Jenny, there's so many things you just shared there, and I want to dive into so much of it. And I'm gonna talk around a couple points, and then I'll put it in your capable hands of you deciding which one to go with first.
Right.
I find it absolutely fascinating that the acknowledgement of some of the almost narcissistic behaviors, in the sense of my expectation is you to make me happy. And because it's really fascinating. I feel like narcissist is one of those societal labels that's kind of really popularized the last few years. And we use it as a way of labeling somebody else's bad behavior, but almost not acknowledging our own self-obsession in the behavior, and that person's behavior was a direct opposite of what our expectation was that it was supposed to be to make us happy. And it's a curious thing on how labels like narcissism, or identities that we try to create around other people as them being a narcissist, we often will generously label somebody else, but we'll be very quick to exclude ourselves in identifying our own behavioral characteristics that could be attributed to that. The second thing you mentioned in there that I find absolutely utterly fascinating was the teasing of, oh, I'm okay. Why is it that we play the I'm okay, everything's fine game? And it seems like this is the dynamic that plays out, where we say I'm okay when we're really not okay. And what we really want is for someone then to ask, well, what's wrong? What's going on? But then we'll say we're fine. But then we really want somebody to keep asking and keep prying and keep all this stuff. Why is it so, I don't even want to ask why it's so hard, but what is the benefit of playing the I'm okay game?
So the benefit of it is I don't have to address it. I don't have to rock the boat. I don't have to change something. I don't have to look at my own weaknesses too, because it's not necessarily, everybody seems to be these days. And if you have a look on dating apps and everything like that, we are looking at somebody and like, oh, they're okay. So we date them. We have an image in our head who this person is, right? A fantasy image. And all of a sudden, how dare they? And we talked about this before. How dare you? Really destroying the fantasy image of like, I created in my head who you are, and all of a sudden you are not this person. So I hold and cling onto that image because I don't want to let that go. I have found somebody who's with me, and you made me feel good maybe at the beginning. And now, because the image I created in my head is actually not the image who you really are. And that's great, because we want to grow. People, I think, they want to have these ready-made, I call them the microwavable ping meal relationships. It's like, fast food. It's like, ta-da, there's Jesse, brilliant. So if we would date or something, there's Jesse, brilliant. You're ready-made. We don't have to work on our relationships because we click, we get on, brilliant. So I try to ignore that. I try to cling on something that's not there. I cling onto something where I think it's a potential. So I don't want to let that go and work actually with who you really are, because that's love, isn't it? So I hold that space and say, okay, oh gosh, I thought you were this person. You are not this person. That's great. But maybe you are even better, right? So I don't let you go outside of these kind of structures are created in my head. I think people don't want to rock the boat because boundaries or standard setting or saying, hey, I don't like it, what you're doing here at the moment. I don't like this relationship to develop in that way, because we feel unattractive. Boundaries are unattractive, unsexy. I become complicated. But I don't see actually boundaries help me when I'm not happy with something to actually work on a better relationship or get you to know better. So have a deeper relationship. So people are scraping on the path of the surface of a shallow relationship. So I want to have that Disney World kind of romance where everything is perfect. And if it's not perfect, you're gone. Because guess what? There's an app out there and I got the next person matched with me. That's what it is. We are not deepening our relationships. We are too scared because it will highlight our things too we need to work on.
How do we? Gosh, there's a few ways I want to go with this, Jenny. So you'll have to forgive me if we go one way and then we come back around and just explore the other path.
Great.
I feel like
Do it.
Remember Choose Your Own Adventure, where you choose the one adventure and then it would go one way and then you'd want to go back and reread it to see what the other path would go.
Yeah, great.
I feel like I'm in that space right now because this is so fascinating. So the question that's most present in my mind right now is, how do we, assuming that love is what we're after in a relationship, which I think the romanticized version of us is going to say that, but I think if we're really real and honest, most of us probably, at least initially in some way, are going into a relationship, I'm guessing, to escape that feeling of our own not so happiness with ourselves. And so it puts this immediate responsibility on the other person, right? Well, I'm okay now because this person loves me. But if the goal of the relationship is really about love and deepening the love for another person, how does one begin to fall out of love with the pedestal that they've placed that person on and truly fall in love with the person, the real person, with all their flaws, their farts, everything else that comes with them, that the things that you don't see on the window display of the pedestal that we imagine someone to be in this Instagram, social media driven, 5 times filtered world?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's all about ourselves. I'm a big believer that I will attract the person in my life I think I deserve. And sometimes I will mold you into that person. So people don't invest the time. So we call it love. I think it's attraction. If you think about that, it's very interesting. You have actually, when you meet somebody, you have anything between 90 seconds and 4 minutes to decide if you find this person attractive. So that could be from friendship, you like that, to really attraction, like, yeah, I can see a future with this person. So we talk maximum of 4 minutes to really have that first connection and decide from there we want to carry on. That's crazy. So we call something love and it's not really love. So that means, how much am I actually willing to work on myself and bring the best version of myself to that date or to that relationship? How often is it that people demand, and we talked briefly about narcissism, and I think it's narcissistic tendencies, it's not necessarily narcissism, but we want that they make us feel good because, like you said, maybe we want to escape something we don't like in our life. So I want you to fill my gap of me not feeling worthy or me not feeling like some lovable, and I want you that you tell me that I'm typical me because I'm smiling so much. So it's like, oh, my ears. Do you still hear me? So it's like, I want you to fill this gap. I want you to fill this gap in regards to my insecurity. So that means I need to work on myself. That means relationship is a reflection. You are my reflection of what I think about a relationship with myself. So do I allow myself to actually grow in a relationship and transform, die, and be reborn? Because often people say, don't change, stay as you are. Worst thing you can do. You probably know that too. It's like, we constantly change. You are not the same person like from last year or 2 years ago. So we don't want that people grow so we can feel good. So what's love then? What's love? That's the question. What's love? Is love a chemical reaction? Are there only bonding hormones? Or do we go really with the deep stuff? Do we really go in and say, okay, a relationship, we're a team. I want to grow. So it's another entity. It's not only two people. It's like another entity. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? It's so much deeper. All of our relationships, it doesn't matter what you choose. If you choose a job, if you choose friends, if you choose, family, we can't choose. This is probably the biggest kind of training ground we have, family, because we are just born into it and here you go. But then friends and partners. So what do I want actually from that kind of relationship? What do I want? What do I bring to the table? Am I the best version of myself? Would I date myself? Or am I needy?
God, that's a good question to ask. Would I date myself?
Would you date yourself?
I think I have a lot of great qualities, but God bless the person who can tolerate me, because it's, I also have and maybe this is a good transition to the boundaries. I have some ways that I'm very set in, routines, habits, structure I have. And there are boundaries for me in the way I conduct and live my life that I think is challenging at times for others who don't have those same structures and boundaries in place because of that. And so what I inevitably will run into with it is they will take a boundary as being a rejection of them. They'll personalize my boundary, make it about them. Well, my boundary was my boundary before that person was ever around, right? It's been boundaries that I've evolved and worked on for a long time. It's a foundational piece that I've created for myself that's allowed me to produce, achieve, live lifestyle I want to live. And where the challenge inevitably comes up with boundaries is rather than embracing and celebrating as this is part of who I am and loving me more, it becomes a personal rejection. Oh, it means that you don't want to spend as much time with me. It means that you don't, want me around, or whatever it is, right? So how do we navigate that with boundaries with folks? How do we have the conversation and help people understand that boundaries have nothing to do with them and everything to do with us? That they are the oxygen mask in the airplanes where they say secure your mask first before assisting others. But it sure as hell doesn't sound very romantic, and it doesn't sound very Disney-esque when you say, well, no, not right now, because I got to do this for me. I can imagine if Prince Charming left Sleeping Beauty or whatever in the castle and said, no, just you wait a little bit, or whatever it was. It wouldn't be quite the movie maybe it wouldn't be quite the movie, and so many of us would have so many relationship problems because we went and been hypnotized into the whole you live happily ever after one smooch.
It's
and that the damsel had to be in distress and the prince had to ride in the white knight. Why can't the damsel be the prince and the white knight be the princess? Or does anybody have to be saved? Why can't we all be knights on horses?
Exactly. Nobody needs to be saved. The thing is, like, for example, you brought something brilliant up. Not everybody. So we have maybe lives. For example, a lot of people romanticize being an entrepreneur, being self-employed. So I work with people who say, my partner should be the successful, I don't know, they have that from romantic novels, the successful person who's earning lots of money, but have all the time for me. So I have to understand what I want from a relationship. If I can look after myself, that's a good start, first of all. So if I don't need somebody to evaluate of who I am, great start. Then also I have to understand that I need to give space. I can't hang on 24/7 with somebody and now every single bit they know, or they do every single day. And that's what happened in a pandemic, because it doesn't create attraction. Attraction is always, oh, they do something outside of me, right? You meet friends, you maybe, I don't know, go on a retreat by yourself, and I let you do this. So that creates space. So that means love means we need to create space. Love is not like 24/7, joined at the hip and everything is perfect. This is the biggest killer of a relationship. So that means if we want to have an entrepreneur, somebody super wealthy, who's super busy and super successful, we have to understand they need definitely their space. They can't text you 24/7. If you text and they didn't respond within 5 minutes, or maybe read it and didn't respond, what do you think what happens? Do you trust them, or do you think, how dare they? I should be top priority. Now we're talking narcissistic tendencies. So it has to be, obviously they have to make room for a relationship, but they have to, of course, say, look, sweetie, this is my boundary. I'm successful because I have to work hard, but I will make sure that we have still a relationship, but sometimes I can't call you straight away or answer message straight away. I can't do this. And it's like the balance. It's the balance we need to have. So do we need to have them as a center of our own life? If you create everything around this person, that's not attractive. If I would say, Jessie, you are everything, you hold everything, my whole life self-worth is in your hands, you would run a mile. You would think, no, thank you very much. That's like not a responsibility I want to have. That's the needy. That's not love. That is like, I cling on to you and now you have to give me everything I expect you to give me.
Yeah.
It's like space. Why don't we give each other space?
I remember, Jenny, one time being at a workshop and being asked a question, like, do you miss me? Do you think about me? Those kinds of things, right? And I said, no. and I said, I'm fully present in what I'm doing. And I can't be present in that and then be missing you at the same time. There's going to be a time where I step away and then I miss or I think. And it was such an interesting response because it was taken personally, because it goes against that whole, Jerry Maguire, you complete me type notion. And it's such an interesting thing. We establish these, what I value in a relationship is trust and honesty. But it's really, I think for so many, it's a lie. It's bullshit. We don't want honesty. We want you to lie and say, yeah, I'm missing you all the time. We don't want honesty. We want you to lie and say, oh, no, my life is not complete without you. I'm so sad and whatnot. And I shouldn't say we, because that's a pretty broad generalization, but it seems like that has been such a narrative that has fueled relationships for so long. And then it's no wonder that, and I'm not sure what the statistics are in the UK, but in the US, it's something, I imagine they're comparable. In the US, it's something to the effect of 52% of first marriages in a divorce, 65% of second, and 76% of third marriages. And what that says is they didn't get it right the first time. They carried all their baggage into the second one. Rather than taking the lessons, they took the baggage. And then when that one didn't work, they took even more baggage and even less lessons into the third one. And they're still just not figuring out that it's not necessarily about the other person, it's about them. And yeah, I find this so utterly fascinating about these dynamics we put around our relationships.
Totally. And that's insecurity. If you have a look at attachment styles, which is totally fascinating. So you have three main ones. It's like avoidant, anxious, and secure. Secure is like, I give you space. I know I'm not identifying my self-worth because you love me, how much you call me, what you do for me. You compliment me. And I want you to be happy too. So if you, for example, if my partner is going somewhere and wants to do a retreat, and I bombard them with tons of text messages and say, okay, do you miss me? When are you calling me? Then, that's your purpose. We both have very purposeful companies. So it's like, it's a purpose we want to live. So if I take that away from somebody, that means you're not allowed to have the purpose. The purpose is now me. And then I have to, why is that the case? Why do I prioritize myself and not allow you to grow? Because that's what it is. So I don't allow you to grow, to be successful, to, do your thing. It's like, I cut your wings. And then definitely on one point, there's resentment. You will not want to be in a relationship like that. And then we think, gosh, what's going on? What's going on? And we have to have these conversations in our relationships and like, hey, look, I love you, but this is my priority. This is my purpose. This is meaningful to me. This is something that has meaning to me. That's part of me, because I'm always a big believer that our companies, our brands are actually an extension of who we are. So if somebody wants to destroy that or not accept that, that's part of ourselves they don't accept. So it's really it's fascinating. We can talk probably forever on this. There are so many different angles you can have a look at. It's fascinating.
And yeah, I agree. I feel like we're barely even beginning to scratch the surface here. How do we begin to engage in those difficult conversations, those uncomfortable conversations about who we really are and what we really want and need?
From the beginning, isn't it? We say, look, what do you think about a relationship? What's the relationship for you? We can start, I would not necessarily say at the first date or something, but it's get them to know, right? What do they do? What do they do work-wise? What's the meaning for them? What books do they read? What friends do they have? And get to know them. It's not necessarily about what they can give to me. It's just getting them to know. It's not like I'm sitting there for 4 minutes and think, that's a great guy. So I'm now off in my, lots of people go off and create already, like, this is the one, they're great. They give value to me. It's like a fashion item I carry around. It's almost like that. It's like, oh, they are really well put together. They look maybe very nice and everything like that. That means I'm worthy. So it's really having the conversation about where you are in life. What do you want? What do you bring to the table? And if you don't like something, if a relationship develops and you find out you want to get married, they don't, you need to be honest. We need to be honest. The majority of us, we wiggle ourselves and think, okay, they don't want to have children, or they don't want to have the marriage, or they don't want to travel, or don't want to travel, I want to be here, and you maybe want to travel and build something really big. And I just don't say anything to really tie you to me. And then I try to change you. Now I start not being truthful. So I need to be truthful because we are scared. Now we got somebody amazing. We don't want to lose them. So morph into something and then change them. And that's very subconsciously, Jesse. A lot of times people do this subconsciously. They cling onto somebody because, hey, they're this vibrant person. They're like really great. That means I must be great. So I don't let them go. So I morph into something I'm not. Talk about what you like, what you don't like, where you are at. You don't necessarily agree with everything they say. That's also not attractive. People always think boundaries or standards or anything have to agree with you. Attraction comes also when I bring a different perspective to that kind of date or relationship or whatever. Yeah. So now we're talking. We need to be truthful. That's first thing. Do not lie. If you want to have marriage, they don't. Be honest and say, oh, I actually believe in marriage. I find that very romantic. Or I actually want to have children. I think we grow when we have children. Or I don't want to have children because I don't. So it's really being honest and not portraying something we are not, to just keep them in our inner circle or keep them, on our radar.
Jenny, this is kind of a random question, but I'm just curious how you respond. So this is going to assume that the spark, whatever we want to call the spark, is the same. It's equal on both sides. But there's two plausible first date scenarios. We'll call scenario one the quote unquote traditional first date scenario. That's where we spend, and I'm thinking of this because I recently experienced this. This friend invested 2.5 hours to get ready for the first date or the second date. Maybe they'd gone out twice, and then drove 30, 45 minutes to the restaurant, had a 75, 80-minute dinner, and then drove back. So their total time they invested to go on this thing and make themselves look the way they made themselves look was probably about, 4 hours and I guess probably close to 4 hours, right? With driving time, everything for a 75-minute date. And they're not somebody that dresses up like that all the time. They really enjoy their cozy company clubs, everything else. So we have the traditional first date where we dress to impress. We go out of our way. We try to, we show up as the best version of ourselves, the version we think we need to be, not necessarily who we are. Or we have other first date where we show up more of just how we are in normal day-to-day life, how we like to dress, how we like to look. We do something that we normally like to do. And we have those conversations about what do you think is in a relationship? What do you want in somebody to hang out with? Which relationship has the potential for more sustainability and growth, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a good question, because I'm not a big fan of these classic things. Let's sit in front of each other. We don't know each other. Now we eat in front of each other, isn't it? We are not sitting side by side, getting to know each other. We are maybe not going out somewhere, just have a walk at the beach and just say, hey, let's grab a coffee, or there's like a nice beach cafe or something. Let's grab something. Let's just walk and talk and get to know each other. So, of course, the best version of ourselves, I would not say don't go there and have like ripped clothes or something. I mean, they are designer clothes. Do something that you really bring a good version of yourself to the table or to the beach. I don't know. But I'm not a big fan of restaurants. I think this is like a very, like people say, it's classic, but we sit in front of each other. First of all, you're nervous. When you're nervous, it's anxiety going on. You can't eat properly. And then you think, oh gosh, I had a friend of mine, she was so nervous. She drank on an empty tummy wine. And then here you go. That's a mistake people do. And then all of a sudden she presented maybe not the version of herself she normally would be, because now you're talking. So yeah, which I don't know. It depends. I can probably carry. I'm more like an extrovert. I probably could carry the restaurant bit too and make it fun and just let's just talk. Let's just relax. Right? Let's just not go through like, I don't know what you order, main course, dessert, and then glass, and then ta-ta, we are going, right? It's just like, let's walk somewhere. Let's just talk in an, atmosphere that's a little bit more relaxed. Have some fun. So people are, like you said, they're like, don't make it stiff. Of course, 2 hours, kudos to respect. 2 hours to get dressed and do. I'm impressed, Jesse. Of course, and that's sometimes great too. Hey, dress to impress. That's fine too. But yeah, I would always say go somewhere relaxed. It doesn't have to be an evening. Go somewhere, grab lunch, or go. I mean, you're in California. You have fantastic beaches. I mean, I'm having a beach over here too in Cornwall, but it's a bit cold. Right, I probably would. That would not be a great date at the moment if I would go there because it's too cold. But choose something where you can relax, because then you stand out too. So if I'm there, I'm bubbly and say, "Hey, how's your day been?" I'm not like, "Okay, stiff. Do I look great? Does everything fit well? Do I have maybe bingo wings or a muffin top or something? Am I worried about that?"
Yeah. What are bingo wings?
Bingo wings are these things. You don't. You know what I mean? Do I present myself? So it's really being like really bubbly. People sit stiff. They're treated almost like, I don't know, America Got Talent or an interview process. People are going there and think, oh gosh, now who's paying the bill? right? So do we go Dutch? Do you pay? Do I pay? What do you want to eat? It's like, yeah, I don't know. Go for a walk at the beach. Just get to know each other a little bit more. There and talk, just talk. Relax.
Jenny, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface, but we're coming up on time. So before I ask my final question, where can people find and connect with you online?
So of course, I mean, I have a group on Facebook and I run courses on there for free regularly during the year. So you can find me on A Strong Heart Awakening by Jennifer White on Facebook, or you go and join my group. It's called Strong Heart Awakening, Transform Your Relationships. Just join and just mingle with other people who work also on boundary setting and improving their relationships. And that doesn't mean necessarily it's romantic only, because it's family, professional relationships, it's all the same. I mean, hopefully you don't kiss your boss, right? If it's but it's,
or your grandma.
Your grandma. Exactly. So the dynamics are slightly different, but underlying the foundation is always the same. So please feel free to just join there if you want to learn more. And of course, strongheartawakening.com. I blog on there regularly so people can read then also any blogs if you need any more advice on that.
Jenny, this has been such a fascinating conversation, and not to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. We didn't even begin to scratch the surface here. There's so much more we could go, and I feel like so much more depth we could go to with this. And I appreciate the generosity in which you've shared. With so much of this being about boundaries, and it really being so clear that I think the biggest relationship challenge inevitably is going to be the relationship with ourselves first before we're relating with someone else. What, in your opinion, and I don't know if there is a one, but what in your opinion is the one or one of the most important boundaries that we need to establish for ourselves first, for that will benefit the other relationships of our life?
Right. Okay, that's interesting, because boundaries, people misunderstand always what boundaries are. So I talk about standards and boundaries very quickly. So standards is what I want to see in a relationship. Then something happens, a violation happens. For example, they are maybe flirting with other people. They maybe come late, they're constantly late. And you're sitting there and waiting in a restaurant, right? Dressed up to the guns, and 20 minutes late and you feel, gosh. So there are standards, what I want to see. There are violation of standards, and the boundary is actually a protection, an action step of doing something about that, telling them you violated my standard. This is not on. It's not on that you're flirting with others when we're in a committed relationship, or making me jealous, or whatever standard you have. So it's, of course, what I always say, standards you create, it's about the mindset of a person. So what's your mindset? Does that, or what mindset do you want to see in a person? Then also, lots of people don't talk about the money or finances, because sometimes it could be that the person is in deep debt. Would you actually be okay with that? Or would you be okay that you earn more than them, or vice versa? So there could be problems. Then, of course, occupation, education. Lots of people don't talk about that. Is it like, can you date somebody who is, for example, working in a slaughterhouse and you are vegan? That's like, really, people don't talk about that. And then, of course, also how we behave. What manners do they have? You know, what do they believe in this world is right or wrong, our morals? So, and this is like, really, we build these standards up over time in our life, that we know what we want to see. So it's completely up to you, because it's being truthful to you, what you want. If you are not truthful to you and your standards in life, and you can't even reflect them. So for example, people say, I want to have a fit person, somebody who's ripped, and you are a couch potato and you're stuffing your face with lots of unhealthy food. How will that fit? How will that fit? If somebody's very active and you are not, how will that fit? So I think it sounds maybe a bit wishy-washy, but there are no one fit for everybody, because we are all so different, which is brilliant. But we should make sure that our standards we set on is a reflection of who we are, and not who we necessarily want to be, right? what we think we need in our life. We need to reflect that.
Everyone, my goodness, are you going to want to rewatch and listen? I hope that this conversation with Jenny was as insightful, as fun, and as eye-opening for you as it was for me. Again, I don't feel like we even begin to scratch the surface, but in the last 30 or so minutes, we've packed in so much, and Jenny just took us on an incredible journey of really, I think, not just relationships, but what it means to be human. We looked at how so many of our relationship challenges we might run into are really about reflections of self, about how the insecurities, the comforts that we come up about, why the reason we play the okay game, because we don't want to have to risk necessarily the vulnerability of having to deal with our own stuff, and look at what might come up for us. We looked at the narcissism and how it can play out in relationships. And often we're so quick to attach and affix the label to someone else that we escape how we're actually living the label ourselves. That the idea of the pedestal relationship, right? We put somebody on the pedestal and we fall in love with who we think they are, the ideals that we have for them. Excuse me, there's a little sneeze there. The ideals we have for them, instead of really looking at who the person is and about how do we fall out of love of the pedestal and fall really into love, truly deeply in love with the person. We talked about re-examining honesty and trust and what that really means, and about what honesty really is about who we are, not as we wish somebody would be. Looking at what standards we want in place for somebody else, and about why, some of the relationship challenges and patterns that we run over and over and over again. And I love the story of showing up for the dinner and being so nervous that we have too much wine and then we come off unpresentable. Consider that if you're looking to go on a date with someone, dating not for who you think you need to be, but just want something more who you are. As Jenny suggested, go for a walk, go for a coffee, do something that doesn't put quite as much pressure and allows you the gift of being able to move and express and physically interact beyond the way of awkwardly sitting across the table and the traditional first date thing that Hollywood has taught us to how things are supposed to be. Jenny, this has been absolutely incredible to share this time with you. Thank you so very much. Again, I hope we can do this again soon, because we didn't even begin to scratch the surface, and you're just such a generous spirit, and this has been such a gift. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such an honor, Jesse. Anytime. Absolutely. I totally enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. We will see you next time, everyone, on another edition of A Handful of Hope. Bye-bye.